On the track, the men's collegiate 4x800 meter relay. Records in the event. Santa Monica Track Club holds the American record, and Penn State, the Penn Relays meet record. And Craig, I think the class of this particular race has got to be George Mason University. They'll be starting out of lane 1.
They've already won the distance medley relay, returned several guys from that team to this, but watch out for Illinois. Great anchorman from the Netherlands, Marko Koers for them. And I would like to point out in your defense, you still do hold the stadium record in the high jump. You set 2 world records here at Franklin Field.
This should be a great race, especially with all the wind that is now swirling inside Franklin Field. Whoever ends up taking the lead in this race will be doing an awful lot of work breaking the wind for the rest of the athletes.
But when you have a large group like this, the last thing you want to do is get too far behind, so it's a tough choice. If you don't go out quickly, get towards the lead, you could be stuck behind. If you go out too quickly, as you say, you end up being the one fighting the wind, and you can see no one really wants to be the one in the lead.
Expected to be the class of this field, George Mason University. It's already won the distance medley relay early in the Penn Relays. Many of those same athletes that ran on that relay team are running here in the 4x800. Starting off with Miklos Árpási of Hungary running for George Mason.
Another strong team, University College Dublin. Their team F, you see them on the yellow tops on the inside, running in second or third place right now. Árpási in the green top of George Mason, looking to move outside, and there he goes, Dwight, looking for some running room. He realizes if you're stuck on the inside in this second lap, you could get into big trouble.
It's such a dilemma for these athletes, whether to have to try and do the work that it takes to break the wind or get caught in a box or in a pack where you can get injured or spiked or worse, even falling down and dropping the baton, as Árpási now says, well, I think I'd rather just go ahead and take the lead. As we have such strength after me, I just need to get the baton off to Alex Morgan, who will run the second leg for George Mason.
Washington State in second right now. That was a very canny move by Árpási, who's never run the Penn Relays before, and yet will give George Mason a commanding lead. Alex Morgan takes it, and he ran the 800-meter leg on their victorious distance medley relay.
And as Alex Morgan stretches out the lead for George Mason on the second leg, we'll take a little time out here. We'll be back with the rest of this race as we return to the 1996 Penn Relays. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Penn Relays. We're in the middle of the men's collegiate 4x800 meter relay. That's Alex Morgan of George Mason University with a comfortable lead as he comes in at the end of his second leg.
Went out aggressively in the first lap, the first 400 meters, and he's held on well. Wasn't that impressive in the distance medley, Dwight. He's really broken this race open for George Mason. 1:46.6 on his relay carry. Outstanding running for Alex Morgan, who normally anchors that team, but he's now broken the race open for George Mason.
Ibrahim Aden of George Mason now on the third leg carry. He was part also of that distance medley relay that was victorious for George Mason University earlier in these Penn Relays.
Aden more of a 1,500 meter runner. His brother Jama Aden came to the United States about a decade ago, and more than a decade ago, ran for Fairleigh Dickinson University, also a 1,500 meter runner, ran in the Olympics.
And Aden out there all by himself with about a 25-meter lead. The wind has dissipated considerably since the start of this race and isn't having as much trouble bucking that wind. Teams bunching up behind him, but truly a commanding lead for an athlete who is dominant in these types of relay carry situations. Coach John Cook at George Mason University doing such a great job at assembling these foreign athletes into a cohesive unit that does very, very well at these relay events.
And they won the indoor NCAA team title, Dwight, and are one of the favorites for the outdoor team title. So it is a strong unit all the way around.
Aden now stretching his lead out to about 35 meters and shows no signs of slowing down whatsoever.
It's tough to lead, though, especially as you mentioned with the wind blowing from time to time. When you have a big lead like this, getting the most out of yourself isn't always easy. Sometimes you just want to sit on the lead, let the others catch up a little bit, save something, and try to sprint at the end.
And Aden will hand off to Julius Achon with a gigantic lead. University of Illinois in second place, and of course they have a great runner in Marko Koers, but he has a lot of distance to make up.
Look at that, it's got to be 40, 45 meters at this point. Achon, the indoor NCAA champion at the mile, world junior champion in the 1500 meters. Koers, by the way, though, ran a great anchor leg in the distance medley for Illinois, the fastest of all the anchor splits, 3:57.9. And he is a world-class 800-meter runner. And by the way, Dwight, he's going out very quickly here. He's starting to cut the distance on Achon.
That distance now down to about 10 meters. Started out, as you said, Craig, about 40 or 45 meters. There's a lap to go, and Marko Koers has caught Julius Achon in the 4x800-meter relay.
49.8 for Marko Koers on the first lap. Now we know why he's caught up. I think Achon went out a little bit slowly, but Koers just went out so quickly, and he's not going to be able to hold on, Dwight. That's just too fast in these conditions.
Achon ran 3:58.9 to anchor the George Mason distance medley relay. You've got to think that he's got more in him, but Koers dogging him right behind him, and Julius Achon now picking up the pace.
Well, you wonder if Achon was just playing cat and mouse there, thinking he could sit on the lead. But I tell you, Koers still has a good step. His stride is efficient. He's hanging in there.
About 60 meters to go. Julius Achon of George Mason University trying to hold off Marko Koers of the University of Illinois. And Achon picks up the pace. Koers succumbing to the early 49.8 400-meter split. A valiant effort by Koers, and a championship run once again by Julius Achon for George Mason University. But what a great and valiant attempt by Koers of Illinois.
A United Nations team for George Mason. Árpási from Hungary, Morgan from Jamaica, Aden from Somalia, and Achon from Uganda.
And Craig, unofficially, Marko Koers split 1:44.8.
Marko Koers, though, one of the great anchor legs in Penn Relays history. Look how far behind he is, Dwight. You estimated 40, 45 meters. He made up a lot of that within the first 300 meters. We're seeing him here come into the home stretch. And by a lap to go, he was right there. And he looked easy doing it. So, kind of performance that doesn't take Illinois to victory, but somebody you better watch for the Summer Olympic Games. Came around that turn. You were right to point out that Achon was going to make that sort of spurt, was going to try to dispirit Marko Koers, and that's really what happened. It's a very short straightaway. If Koers just could have been there for the last 50 meters, he might have had a chance. Achon smart enough to inject a little speed and then get away.
A really intelligent relay anchor by Julius Achon, bringing his George Mason team home to victory, holding off the late charge by Illinois, and the results of that men's 4x800-meter relay. A truly exciting race on that last leg. George Mason University, after winning the distance medley relay earlier in the Penn Relays, wins here 7:14.54. Illinois, an outstanding time, and Georgia Tech in third. And Gus Johnson is down on the infield with the victorious George Mason coach.
And joining me now, John Cook, the head coach of George Mason. Kind of close there at the end, Coach.
Too exciting. We really wanted to get away and didn't want it to be that exciting.
Now tell me, your anchor, Achon, was he kind of playing a little cat and mouse at the end with the All-American?
I think he had enough left to know what he was doing. He wasn't going to get caught.
So George Mason adds the 4x800 to go along with their distance medley, and later on they'll have an opportunity to compete for the 4x400 title.